Hey everybody, it's Monday, April 27th, 2026. We're weeks into the extended ceasefire between the US and Iran, with the blockade standoff locked in place across the critical Strait of Hormuz. The biggest development over the last 24 hours is Iran's latest phased proposal delivered through regional mediators. They're offering to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for international shipping if the US lifts the entire blockade of Iranian ports and effectively ends the active conflict phase, while pushing any serious nuclear program discussions off to a later stage. Maybe never is what they meant by that. So far, that proposal hasn't gained much traction. Remember, Iran's whole oil network has been squeezed, and when that oil stops flowing and their reserve tanks fill up, it's basically like all that oil hardens up and they won't be able to use those pumps for years. So Iran is extremely desperate at this point, and the US military is putting pressure on them that is showing us that there are cracks forming within the inner regime of Iran itself. And that's why they're desperate to make this deal. When you've got F-35s overhead, you've got Marines and their assault ships, you've got destroyers, and you've got the world's best drones up there, just trusting but verifying. It's pressuring the regime to a level that we haven't seen yet. And the negotiations being canceled, Iran gave a little bit of rhetoric about that, but President Trump basically said that they can call us or come to the table themselves after that canceled trip. Hundreds of millions of dollars being squeezed out of the IRGC and the Iran regime every single day. They're saying it's $500 million, but Iran isn't going quietly, as you can imagine. Their officials are keeping up strong, defiant rhetoric. They accuse the United States of piracy with the blockade, excessive demands, and not being serious about genuine diplomacy. Their foreign minister, Abbas Agarachi, wrapped up stops in Pakistan, Oman, and arrived in Russia today for talks with President Putin. And right now, high above the Strait of Hormuz, those F-35s are just sitting up there and they're like, Iran, looks like you're feeling a little bit of pressure. So this is American sea power, air power pressuring the regime on a whole new level, basically forming cracks within the regime itself, making them look extremely desperate. And these next few days could reshape the entire standoff. But let's pop to the map and to X to get a full breakdown on what's going on. We're going to look at some key nuclear sites that Iran just hopes they can continue to use, and then we'll go to X for some latest breaking news on Iran's talks with Russia. Welcome to the map, my friends. So the US naval blockade, as we can see, putting extreme pressure on the regime. The regime saying, hey, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz if you just let us keep doing our nuclear thing. They don't want to make any nuclear deal, obviously. That's the thing they see as something that can actually prop up and save the regime itself. And so that's what they're focused on. That's what they think is actually going to keep the regime in power, which is just wild to think about, that is what the deal is that they're trying to make. They're like, yeah, guys, we don't want to have any nuclear deal as a part of this, but we'll just open the Strait of Hormuz because the US, you guys just care about money, right? You don't care about nuclear weapons and the regime staying in power and funding proxies. You just care about money, right? Because they're using the logic that they have. All they care about is money and power, and they slaughter their own people to keep it. So they think that's going to sway the United States and the administration of the United States. Yeah, snowball's chance in hell of that happening. US naval blockade out here, this is where it really executes a massive amount of force. They need to be up here in this little tiny choke point in the Strait of Hormuz itself. So you've got the US Navy executing the blockade with destroyers, submarines, and then you've got the assault ships from the Marines out here doing what they do as well, with F-35Bs blasting off, using those F-35 radars to make sure they know exactly what's coming at them in the Strait of Hormuz. This is why Iran wants to keep doing what they're doing, and it revolves around this area right here, Pickaxe Mountain. It's near Natanz. So this is an underground uranium enrichment site. We know that Natanz has been hit, the vent shafts have been hit, but right here in this area is Pickaxe Mountain, and it's a 300-foot deep cavern that houses the different uranium sites for their newest project, which is Pickaxe Mountain. Natanz, the vent shaft there was hit, but it gets even deeper than Natanz, and that involves Pickaxe Mountain right here. So the regime is like, oh yeah, everybody look at the Strait of Hormuz. Let's just focus on that. Let's open that up. But they don't want to make a nuclear deal a part of what they're talking about with the administration. So basically the greatest grifters of all time trying to strike a deal that allows them to continue to develop their nuclear facilities here near Natanz or wherever else that they've gotten that uranium uranium that they're trying to actually create into something that could become a weapon for leverage. I mean, think about it. At this point, they want that. That's their number one focus. They've got to have something that can keep the regime in power, and that's their number one focus. If they can get a nuclear weapon at some point under the radar, develop it, then they think that will keep this from happening to them again. That's their whole goal. And then here we are on X, my friend. So Iran-US war live news. Iran offers to open Strait of Hormuz without nuclear agreement, as we just discussed. Are we surprised? Yeah. No nuclear agreement. We just want the Strait of Hormuz open for the money to flow. And then we just want to do whatever it is that we do. We're not going to do anything nefarious in our country. We promise. And then Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says the support of President Putin and Russian people inspire us in this war. On behalf of the people of Iran, I thank the government and people of Russia. Meanwhile, in the back door, there's just thousands of surface-to-air missiles, man pads flowing into Iran. That could be something that's happening with Russia trying to get leverage as well. So Russia sees this as a strategic win, obviously, because if they can keep the U.S. distracted with Iran, now they think they'll have more bargaining power and more positioning and leverage when it comes to Ukraine and getting more territory with whatever deal happens to come about there. And then for your viewing pleasure, we've got this IRGC Lego video. This is actually about the rescue of the weapons systems officer in Iran, but they're saying it was the uranium heist. And now with Iran focused on nuclear weapons, focused on opening the strait, but not making a nuclear deal, this is becoming even more applicable. So let's just watch and get inside the minds of the IRGC for a second when it comes to their supposed, what they say was a uranium heist, trying to get the uranium out of Iran from the US.
They said it was a rescue, but it was a heist. Uranium heist! Uranium heist! Try to steal our uranium and
nice. That C-130 landed just like a helicopter. Sweet. And look at the hair on this guy. This is amazing hair. This is special operations hair if I've ever seen it.
Dead of night, commandos, rangers, Black Hawks in the fight failed miserably. Just like Tabas, right? They flew deep into ice for hunt, thought we wouldn't see. Special forces, excavators trying to take our enriched uranium for free. Attacked our defenses, tried to seize the ground, but we lit them up. Now the birds are down.
Helicopter transforms into a C-130. That's awesome.
Black Hawks burning in the sand, 600 million wasted on a failed master plan. They called it a rescue, but the world knows the truth. They came for our uranium. That's the real proof.
Well, the uranium is buried hundreds of feet down with the vent shafts completely destroyed from those 30,000-pound bombs. So it's pretty much nuclear dust that's left, not necessarily uranium.
This wasn't random at all. They wanted our nuclear material. That was the goal. Deep into our territory under constant.
Yeah, so it's hilarious. They're saying the U.S. is going to fly in a few special forces aircraft and then just take all of their uranium. Yeah. No, I think there's much better ways to deal with that than just to put your uranium on a C-130 and fly it out of the country.
But they got exposed. Now the whole world sees their regret. Felt like Tabas, history repeating again. Superpower embarrassed, losing more than just man. You try to rob us in the middle of the war. Now
yeah, during this operation, there was no men lost. The reports I'm seeing have shown that over 100 commandos from the IRGC were actually taken out. It could be as high as 200.
You're running scared. We laugh from afar. Sacred defense.
That guy had a half a beard. Anybody else notice that? He's got the half beard going on. Maybe they call him IRGC General Half Beard. Yeah, I think that's probably about right. I would call him half capable as well at this point.
Uranium safe. Stop running away! Keep your boots on the ground!
Yes, that's what they want. They're like, keep your boots on the ground, do a strategic blunder like Iraq and Afghanistan. They're trying to win the propaganda war. And again, they're turning, the United States' corporate media, some of those entities, against the U.S. itself that are basically on the IRGC's side, which is crazy, but it shows how the propaganda war plays out.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got his beard back. He got his beard. Congratulations, sir. Wow, that's a good advertisement for some beer growing. Maybe it's the uranium that grew his beard back. So let's move into exactly what's unfolded over the last day and how this high-stakes operation continues to develop. So the clear picture from the last 24 hours is Iran basically saying, hey, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz, just allow us to get that oil flowing so we don't lose the use of our actual oil wells. And this is pure proof that the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz is pressuring the regime to a place where they don't want to be anymore. They just want out of this blockade, and their whole goal is to try to save face while also getting the oil flowing again to keep them in power, because there's going to be inner rumblings as that money stops flowing into the pockets of the IRGC bosses, and as the people of Iran start to see the actual weakening and the ability of the regime to actually hold power in Iran itself. But everything is monitored. There's cameras everywhere. Phones are tapped. So it is a very precarious situation for the free people of Iran that are waiting for the right moment. As we've heard Reza Pahlavi say, we've heard President Trump and Pete Hegseth say, wait for the right moment and don't go out and start your protests again, because we're going to need you at some point. And now we're starting to see fractures in the regime on a whole new level because of this US blockade. It remains fully in effect, and it's described by American officials as ironclad, and even expanding it with the third carrier arriving in the region just a few days ago. Dozens of vessels continue to be turned away. We're seeing 35 plus vessels that were trying to get out or into Iranian ports have now been turned away, squeezing off that $500 million. And lethal force has been authorized against any credible threats, including mine-laying attempts. No new kinetic incidents so far. However, they are locked and loaded, ready to go against those different boats if they try to do the mine-laying. But let's take a closer look at the Iranian side, what they're doing, saying, and planning, and what kind of deal they might have struck while they were in Russia. So their foreign minister, Arakchi, his trip to Russia is the clearest signal yet that they are focused on trying to show strength in this conflict itself. So specifically, what would they be looking for from Russia? Well, ultimately, they would love to get their hands on advanced surface-to-air missiles like the S-400 weapon. That's Russia's most advanced surface-to-air missile. So if they can get their hands on that, that would be a huge win for them. Also, man-pads with advanced electro-optical sensors that are now likely being used by Russia and China, since they share a ton of military equipment. So Iran obviously wants to get their hands on that and place them around those key nuclear sites like we just looked at with Natanz and Pickaxe Mountain. But supporting this entire operation with the Arleigh Burke class destroyers leading the charge for the naval blockade itself. Remember, underneath the surface, there's something lurking there. A nice little surprise for Iran. Just when you thought it was just the surface, just look here, and now you've got submarines that are actually the ones that are likely doing a lot of the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance under the waves, determining which ships are going in and out of Iran's ports, and then deterring any serious Iranian naval moves with their fast attack craft. Those fast attack craft are likely going to think twice now that the gloves have been taken off against any mine-laying boats, because again, oh, we thought they might have been laying mines, or they had the potential to lay mines. In that case, those fast attack boats would go bye-bye real quick. And then think about the unmanned surveillance equipment that is in the area as well. So the Lamprey undersea sea leech can be down there teamed up with submarines, latching onto submarines and making its way around the Persian Gulf at free will. So having hundreds of those things would be an amazing adaptation for naval sea power. But again, teaming those up with air power, so teaming those up with advanced drones like the Anduril Fury or the AI X-Bat. You've heard me talk about these before, but if you get all these things collaborating, talking to each other with AI, you can literally control everything from the seabed up into space. And now Iran literally has nowhere to hide. And right now, it's about extreme pressure put on the regime itself as they try to look cute going and meeting with Putin at the same time. They know behind the scenes they have so much pressure put on them that their economy is basically crumbling right before their eyes. But you team all of those different systems up, the AI X-Bat having hive mind, that means it can talk and communicate to different X-Bats. It can communicate to F-35 fighters, F-22 fighters, even the Aegis system that's on the different ships in the blockade. And that moves us to the 4D chess strategic analysis section. This is a measured approach, consistent economic pressure with military pressure, the best of both worlds, keeping the blockade in place while direct kinetic activity stays low. This forces Iran into a reactive posture where they're chasing diplomacy support. They're floating incremental proposals instead of trying to dictate the terms now. Now they're like, hey, we'll give you pretty much everything you want. As long as we can do whatever we want, With the nuclear side, again, that's not going to work. That deal's not going to work. But you can see they've never come to this place before where they've said they'll fully open the Strait of Hormuz. But if this situation were to escalate, American forces are postured all around the area. They would respond professionally and overwhelmingly, and likely right now, all the aviators, fighter aviators, bomber pilots, KC-135 pilots, they're all studying the different ways that Iran's going to try to shoot down fighter jets and other assets. Maybe they're getting longer range weapons and they would try to target the high value targets like the AWACS and the KC-135s that are airborne doing the aerial refueling. So at this point, all the aviators are likely studying what Russia could be bringing to the fight to help them out and what it means now that we know for sure that China is giving that advanced imagery to Iran. So that is likely going to change the pace, tempo of the operations, more strategic surgical strikes. So right now, the Pentagon is hard at work with different planning cells, making sure that the right targets are struck right off the bat should this conflict kick back off. So thanks for spending the time with me today as we break down this ongoing situation in the Strait of Hormuz. American forces are continuing to demonstrate strong professionalism, technological superiority in this complex environment. Where do you think it goes from here? Where do you think this standoff heads? Do you think that Russia will actually provide Iran with advanced weaponry? Let me know in the comments below. Go and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. Click the link in the description, join the Max Ready Room. You get exclusive members only videos, and then watch this next video that pops up right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.